Force will be with you.
Always.
Hello guys, it's time to talk about spoilers with The Rise of Skywalker. There's going to be a full spoiler-filled review or thoughts video. Not really a review, I'm not really talking about the quality of the film. I talked about that in my non-spoiler review, but I couldn't really get into detail. And I've had a lot more time to think as well about this film. And the more I think about it, the more I like. The more little issues I find, the more little things I wish they'd done things a certain way instead. But the more times I realise just how much of a great time I did actually have sitting in the theatre. I did sit there, I did have a great time. And let's talk about The Rise of Skywalker. This is going to be full spoilers, so if you've not seen the movie yet, go and see it. I really liked this film. In my original review, I gave it a B+, and an 8 out of 10. In terms of my Star Wars ranking, where this film fits place, I'm not too sure. I'm going to do an updated ranking video of the Star Wars film, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. I really, really liked this film. I had a lot of issues with it, a lot of problems with it. I felt it was a bit too rushed. I felt that some things weren't concluded as well as I thought they would. I wasn't a big fan of a lot of the choices in the movie, but I did really have a great time. I did feel a lot of emotions. There was a lot of great fan service, a lot of great moments, and they ended this saga pretty well, in my opinion, and in a quite satisfying fashion. Let's talk about this movie now. Full spoilers. Rey's a Palpatine. Oh, I did not expect that. That's one of the things that I saw on like theory videos, like before The Force Awakens came out, and I was just like, that's just stupid. No, they'll never do that. And that sort of gives one reason why Palpatine is back, but I don't. My biggest problem with this movie is that nothing was planned. It doesn't feel like a. It just feels like they rushed to get it out. It didn't really feel like a planned thing. It didn't feel like they planned to put Palpatine in there. J.J. Abrams didn't plan this all along when he made The Force Awakens. And I feel like that Rey is a Palpatine thing was just a reason just to put Palpatine in the movie because they wanted that because Rian Johnson killed off Snoke. And I feel like that was why Palpatine was in this film. Palpatine, it doesn't explain how he comes back. There could be reasons why he comes back, but they doesn't fully explain it. Which I'm fine with. I'm fine with things not being explained, but there needs to be a reason for him to be there, and I feel that Rey was a Palpatine was the thing for him to be there, and I wasn't a fan of that. But the ending scene, which I'm going to get over now, was probably my second favourite scene in this entire movie, where she goes back to the Lars homestead, she puts the two lightsabers in the sand, she gets a yellow lightsaber, I believe it was from her staff that she had in The Force Awakens in The Last Jedi. I believe that was the hilt of her staff that turned into the yellow lightsaber, so that was a lightsaber all along, which was cool, and that sort of linked into the yellow being the mixture between the light and the dark, like Rey was the mixture between the light and the dark, but she eventually chose the light side, and the Force will live on through her, and I like that. That sort of also linked into the message in The Last Jedi, where the Force is everywhere, and that she sort of came from nothing, and that linked into the boy at the end of that movie, and I wish this movie carried on with that message, because I thought that message was really powerful. And this ending scene, I thought, did carry on with that message, and that's why I love this this ending moment so much. And when she looks over at the two ghosts of Leia and Luke, I'll talk more about Leia and Luke and Han later, and she says, "Rey Skywalker," I was so happy, because I hated the Palpatine stuff. I really didn't like that he was back. He added some things to the movie, but I didn't appreciate that. Rey killed him pretty easily, and we'll get into some of the more deaths of the movie later, but I loved how she said Rey Skywalker. That was just so heartwarming. It's like, she's not really accepting who she is. She is a Jedi, and she doesn't have to follow in the footsteps of her grandfather to do that. I'm not sure how Palpatine is her grandfather. That's a bit ridiculous, but I liked that ending. It sort of... It gave me hope, and it gave me felt good, and that final shot of her and BB-8 stood next to the suns like a silhouette was really satisfying, and I really loved that. I would have liked to have seen Kylo Ren there as well, maybe, because Kylo Ren does die, and the arc they do with him I thought was really powerful. He has a fight with Rey, the lightsaber duel in the movie, on the water, on the waves, and those waves look gorgeous, and that was on the Death Star 2 to find, I believe they're the Sith holocrons or something. They give the map to Exegol, which is where the Emperor is, because he gives this big message. And it actually explained Palpatine's being back in the opening crawl. This one of the issues I had with it. The Last Jedi took place seconds after The Force Awakens. I was hoping this one would do the same. But the opening scene is Kylo Ren going to find this holocron, then going to see the Emperor, and then the Emperor tells Kylo Ren who Rey is. And it was just such a big exposition dump, and it literally told us in the opening crawl, Emperor Palpatine is back and sent a message across the galaxy, and Kylo Ren is going to find him, and Rey is training. And it's just like, why did we need that in the crawl? Couldn't the crawl tell us something that's happened between this and The Last Jedi instead of telling us what is about to happen? Because the crawl tells us things, and then we see them happen. It's like, the crawl is supposed to tell us what happened in between. It wasn't a good use of the crawl. I think it's probably the worst crawl out of all of the Star Wars films. It's just such a big exposition dump, and it just doesn't work. But seeing those yellow words burst up on the big screen again for one last time was, again, it brought a tear to my eye. And let's talk about Kylo Ren in this film and his arc. Rey stabs him in the chest, and then she heals him with Force healing, which we have seen in Episode 7 of The Mandalorian. She sort of just has this power, which I'm fine with introducing new Force powers. Just I want to see her discover that, because she does use that earlier on in the film where they get thrown into this sandpit sort of thing after a really, really entertaining chase sequence in the desert after they meet Lando Calrissian. And Lando Calrissian was sort of just thrown in there. But I did like his appearance in the film. I thought it was well done. It didn't really explain what he's been doing all this time, or his reaction to Han's death, or Leia's death, or anything like that. But I did actually really appreciate Lando being in this film, finally. I wish they'd put him in The Last Jedi. Instead, I wish they'd made him Benicio del Toro's character in The Last Jedi. That would have worked probably better. But still, I still liked seeing Lando in this movie, and him in the Vulcan with Chewie again was amazing. Finn also tells Rey something, and that is going to lead into one of my biggest issues with the movie. But again, I'll get into that later. But she falls into the sand and she heals this big worm thing, and that's the first time we see her using this power. And she uses that on Kylo Ren to heal after she stabs him at the end of this lightsaber duel. This lightsaber duel had no meaning. The music was really poor in it. I did like the music in the movie at all, of course. I mean, John Williams' music is amazing, but I felt the score in certain moments. The score overall was fantastic, of course, but the score wasn't used in certain moments where I think it could have really amazed. We finally got to hear the main actual Star Wars crawl theme. When all the ships came through, we got a big endgame moment where Lando Calrissian came in with all the ships at the end. We got a cameo from Wedge Antilles, which was nice to see. We got all of our heroes back and starting off the epic battle. And the battle didn't take too much long, though, bursting down all these Star Destroyers. It sort of destroyed them pretty quickly. And it wasn't as epic. In scale, it was epic, but it wasn't epic in terms of emotion or thrill, because there wasn't really any thrill there at all. The only thrill I felt with this movie was when Rey was going to see Palpatine, and the lightsaber duels and the action sequences didn't really have much thrill. It was sort of the characters discovering things that gave me the thrill, and certain character deaths and stuff like that. But Kylo Ren's arc is that he sees his memory of Han Solo, and we actually get the exact mirrored sequence where he's remembering the time that he killed Han. It was really nice to see Harrison Ford one last time. I mean, I thought his send-off in Force Awakens was amazing, but Leia sort of uses the last of her power to reach out to Kylo Ren, and sort of makes him turn the other way, and Rey sort of helps turn him by healing him, and I liked that. I liked how Kylo Ren turned, because I knew he would eventually in the film, and I liked him seeing that memory of Han. I thought that was really, really heartwarming, and he throws his lightsaber into the ocean and goes to help Rey. And Princess Leia, let's talk about Princess Leia. I loved how she was teaching Rey. I mean, after Luke's gone, Leia's sort of the last Jedi Master, and we actually see a lot of flashbacks of old Luke and old Leia, and Luke training Leia, which was amazing to see. I loved seeing that. Seeing old Mark Hamill and Leia again was really heartwarming. But I loved Leia teaching Rey. I thought that was really amazing. And Leia dies when Kylo Ren dies, and let's talk about Kylo Ren's death. He uses the Force healing power, because they have this bond, to help Rey, and after he fights the Knights of Ren, and Sidious electrocutes him and throws him off the side of the building, and Rey dies, and he uses the power to save her. And I thought that was a really emotional moment. I would have liked to have seen Kylo Ren live, because Rey, when she foresees Kylo Ren, she doesn't die, so you know, I would have liked to have seen both of them carry on the story, but I understand that this is the last Skywalker movie, so leaving this Skywalker family alive Rey is now going to carry on the Skywalker name and carry on the Jedi legacy, even though Kylo Ren was the last Skywalker, but I feel like they had to end all the Skywalkers in this film, so I understood why Kylo Ren had to die, and I liked him fading away at the same time Leia faded away, and him kissing Rey at the end, sort of having that love for them too, I thought really worked, because it sort of lended into their connection in The Last Jedi. Now let's talk about the thing that Finn was going to say to Rey. This is one of the biggest issues I have with this movie. Finn has this thing he wants to tell Rey throughout the entire movie, but never has the chance to, and actually we never hear him say anything. I like how they've left it ambiguous, but it's a character arc. That would have fulfilled Finn's character arc with Rey. And it didn't work. I think it was either one of two things. The first thing is that he loves her, and he wants to tell her that, and I feel like the reason why he wouldn't tell her that is because maybe he saw her with Kylo Ren, and at the end of the movie, or he didn't want to say because Bo was around, or the other thing was that he is Force sensitive, which we actually find out he is. But the Force is everywhere, so everyone is Force sensitive. It's just that how much on the scale are they Force sensitive? And Finn does have that when he speaks with Jannah. And Jannah was a really nice new character, great new addition. And because she was a stormtrooper like Finn. It doesn't really explain her, but if they're going to add in that character, I liked how they added that little bit in where she was a stormtrooper as well, so her and Finn had something to relate to each other with, and I liked that. I think that added with Finn's arc a bit, but Finn's arc and his relationship with Rey, I thought wasn't fully fulfilled. I think he should have revealed to her what he was going to say, or Rey at least ask, or maybe he just says it doesn't matter anymore, just anything, just bring it up again. They don't have to explain what he wants to say, just at least bring it up, because that really frustrated me in the film. And I constantly, every time Finn was on screen and Rey was on screen together, I constantly wanted to know what he wanted to tell her. That's something I just wanted to tell, and that's the problem I have with this movie. It brings its own questions in. It should be answering the questions from the other two movies setup, but this movie brings in more setup, and then tries to explain that and doesn't even finish this movie's setup. So it's sort of, the first half an hour of this movie is still more setup, and this movie's trying to conclude the first half an hour of this movie's setup, and Last Jedi, and Force Awakens, and the entire Skywalker saga, and it's very overwhelming, and that was my biggest issue with the movie. Let's talk about more things, spoiler heavy. Luke Skywalker, she goes back to Ahch-To Island. We see the Porgs for a second. We actually see Ewoks as well in this movie, which was nice to see Ewoks. And they actually went to the actual planet of Endor, not the moon of Endor from Return of the Jedi, which was sort of cleared that up, which was nice. We actually got to see what Endor looked like. Again, the waves on there were beautiful. And I did love the scene with Luke. This was my favourite scene in the movie. Because Luke's arc in The Last Jedi I thought was really great, and this movie just added more to that arc. It didn't take away from Luke's character in The Last Jedi like a lot of the other things in this movie did. It added to Luke's character in that movie. It added to the reason why he made Rey train herself. And I really appreciate that. And seeing Luke as a Force ghost was really, really heartwarming. The things he says to Rey made me tear up, and we get my favourite moment in the movie, which is pure fan service. It's pure fan service. It is. But I don't care, because this scene made me so happy that I actually had tears streaming down my face. I couldn't hold it in. I was so happy, I was smiling and tears were streaming down my face. Oh my god, one of my favourite Star Wars moments. Luke finally lifts the X-Wing out of the water. And he has that smile on his face, like he's been wanting to do that the whole time. As soon as I saw that shot of the X-Wing in the water in The Last Jedi, I was hoping him at the end of that film to lift it out of the water and then fly off to Crate or something, but he didn't use the Force protection. To see him do that was really amazing. Rey being Red 5, so entertaining. Coming in at that final battle. Poe Dameron as well had a lot of interesting. We learned that he was part of an underworld before. And when we get to that underworld, I believe the planet's called Kijimi. We meet some new characters, Zori Bliss. We meet this guy called Babu Freak. He was hilarious. And that also leads into C-3PO's arc with him. He has to encrypt this Sith thing. It's quite convoluted actually here. But I liked how they had to erase C-3PO's memory again. And that was quite an emotional moment. And R2-D2 wasn't in the movie much, but C-3PO was in the movie quite a bit, and it was really nice to see C-3PO in it a lot. BB-8 was great as well. We got to meet a new droid, Dio, who didn't add much to the movie. He was just there. A lot of the scenes between Dio and BB-8 could have been done with BB-8 and R2-D2 instead. Because I feel like R2-D2 was sort of silent in this movie, but C-3PO really got his arc fulfilled, and R2 gave him his memory back at the end, and I like that. I like seeing C-3PO very unaware, and it sort of harkens back to when C-3PO first meets R2-D2 in The Phantom Menace, and when he first meets Luke in A New Hope, and I like them little callbacks with C-3PO's character. It really fulfilled that actually the original story for this film, the original story for this entire franchise even, the first 20 minutes of A New Hope, is just about those two droids. This entire franchise is sparked between R2-D2 and C-3PO, and the whole story, the whole saga even, except these new films, has been through their eyes. And I loved seeing that. I loved seeing those two characters, because those two characters have made this franchise. Yes, it is about Darth Vader and Anakin's storyline, and this movie definitely puts the Chosen One storyline aside. I liked Rey hearing all the voices of the Jedi. We hear Mace Windu, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, both Obi-Wan Kenobis. We hear Anakin. I would have liked to have seen Anakin, actually, in this film. It was something I didn't want them to happen, but I feel like it would have worked, because it would have bookended all of this movie, because with the rest of the franchise, because this entire saga, the Skywalker saga, is about Anakin, Luke, and then their children. It's about the three generations. The three trilogies are about the three generations. And it would have been nice to conclude all three generations in this saga, and it doesn't really do that. It only concludes this generation. I wish it concluded all of them. But I was very satisfied with The Rise of Skywalker. They're my spoiler thoughts. I really liked the movie. I did really like it. Some things were disappointing. The pacing, some of the exposition, Emperor Palpatine and Rey being a Palpatine, I wasn't a big fan of. But, to be honest, for what they did, I was very happy with. I wish some of the moments were more impactful. But, in the end, I was sat in the cinema for this film, crying at some moments, laughing, feeling overwhelmed, feeling happy. Is it as amazing as some of the best finales of all time, like Avengers Endgame this year? It doesn't reach those heights. I was hoping it would, but visually it's a stunning film. Character-wise, it does a lot of things I really appreciated. Pace-wise, it's not too great, but when this adventure got going, I didn't want it to end, and I did really like The Rise of Skywalker. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to, but I did really like it. And there you go, there are my thoughts on Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Spoiler thoughts, a lot to speak about this film. A lot of little nods as well. Again, I'm not going to go fully into detail. But there we go. There's some of the spoiler things about this movie. Chewbacca nearly died as well. I forgot to talk about that. Chewbacca nearly died, and that was horrible. And seeing him back was great. General Hux was a rebel spy, and he got killed, which was really strange. Snoke was created by Palpatine. I think we could have all guessed that. Just trying to find any other things I missed. Rose was hardly in this one. Glad about that. Yeah, that's about it. Guys, comment down below your opinions on Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Which spoiler things were you happy with or not happy with? And of course, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you. And I do have reviews for The Mandalorian Season 1, Uncut Gems, and a ranking of all the Star Wars films coming soon. This video is 20 minutes long and my voice is going to go, so goodbye.
The Force will be with you.